Well, thank you. This will be a little new for me. I haven't really sat in front of a podium before. I'm used to actually moving around. I speak at a lot of national clinics around the country, and typically, you're on a stage and you're running drills and doing things like that, so it's always quite interesting. A little bit about, I think when Leo had first talked to me about coming over here and speaking today, I was trying to really think what I could provide you that would be good information for you, at least moving on, moving forward, and currently, I mean, with what you're doing in your sports and school and everything else. And I was trying to think, what would mesh really well for you. And a little bit of it is probably a little bit about my past. Because I think I was a lot like a lot of you just sitting in here today. When I was 18 years old, I know for me personally, I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. I went on to college and really struggled actually my first year, and really had no clue as to where I was going to end up or what I was going to end up doing. But a little bit about my life. My dad, who just passed away this past October, was probably my closest friend growing up. He was one of those transactional fathers in sport. He was a guy that just continued to push me every single day, drive me hard to do everything, the right way, and was the guy that was always on the sideline and standing on the fence and pacing around and back. It was always interesting. Not that I ever really enjoyed that part of it, but I did appreciate the fact that my parents supported me. My dad worked for Carnation Company, which back then was like Carnation milk, like they had the chocolate milk, the evaporated milk, all that. And my dad got out of college and immediately went to work for Carnation Company. And he kind of he was driven. He was a worker every single day, and he just climbed the ladder with Carnation. He ended up working for him for over 25 to 30 years, and in that time, he ended up being probably one of the top 5 guys with Carnation nationally. And at a time in the 80s, Nestle's merged in, and they had a lot of these big business majors, and Nestle's merged in, and they bought out Carnation, and my dad, lost his job that day. I still remember it to this day, because he gave his heart and soul to Carnation Company. But a part of his growth was that he would travel quite a bit, so he wasn't around all the time in my life. But as a part of that too, he would get jobs all the time, and new jobs, and he would just continue to grow in the business. And so we moved. I was born in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, ironically, and ended up moving to Iowa, from Iowa to Houston, Texas, from Houston to Spokane, Washington, from Spokane, Washington back to Iowa, from Iowa to Indiana, Indiana back to Texas, and that's where I ended up finishing up high school. When I was a sophomore, I lived in Indiana, and it was a tough decision for my parents. My dad ended up getting promoted to a new job. We had just won a state championship in high school football. And for me, I was a sophomore. I got pulled up to varsity, and I was one of the only few sophomores that got pulled up. We ended up winning this state championship. And I always remember this, and I tell this story to all athletes, because I always remember when my coach, I started for the sophomore team, and I enjoyed being with my friends who I'd played football with for a lot of years. And football was my life. It's just all I ever loved at the time. And they pulled me up and they said, Randy, we really want you to play with the varsity team. And I was like, all right, that'd be great. And so I go, and nobody knows me. Even the head football coach. I just knew the sophomore football coach. I knew who the head football coach was. But I was just somebody my dad would drive me to always stay up by the coach, So, wherever the coach was, I'd be, following him around, on the sidelines. And I was probably this annoying little sophomore guy, that would just be out there all the time. And the coach would sit there during the game. So we go out to Indianapolis, and we're there to play Brebeuf High School. And the coach is standing on the sideline. He's yelling, and he's just screaming at the top of his lungs. And he was this big dude, and he's going, Schneidesky, Schneidesky, Schneidesky. And I'm standing right behind him, and I'm going, what? I'm looking around too. And he's just screaming, and he turns, and, and finally, my defensive back coach runs up. He goes, Schneider, get in the game. The coach is calling your name. And I'm like, my name's Schneider. It's not Schneidesky. And so I run out there, and all I know is that everybody standing in the huddle looks at me, and they go, dude, man, don't get beat deep, all right? I mean, they start yelling at me, and like, this is my experience. I never said a word. I just did my job, ended up starting. I played all year. At the end of the year, I got invited to the top 100 camp at Notre Dame, which was a big thing for me. So I go out to Notre Dame, and this is where my whole life's dream was to play football at Notre Dame. And just about that point, my dad ends up getting offered a job down in Texas. And so we have to move. And we didn't know what that was all about. So we moved down there. He thought, well, football in Texas. We had all heard about this. And this is right during Friday Night Lights. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen Friday Night Lights, but it was surreal. I don't know if there's people here from Texas, but back then it was exactly what you see on television. It was the craziest thing. I mean, it's just pickup trucks everywhere, and I was just your typical urban cowboy. My first day, I was like, you know, sophomore and just going into my junior year, I got to have cowboy boots. You know, I mean, I need these cowboy boots. Everyone wears cowboy boots in Texas, so I did. I went out and I bought dingo boots. I don't know if you've ever heard of these. They're square-toed boots. And I thought that they were the hip thing to buy when you went to school there, you know. And I walked in my first day of school, and all these guys pulled me out between the shop classes, and it wasn't fun either way. But it was all because I wore dingo boots. And I was this urban cowboy-type kid and everything, so I just kept my mouth shut. I go to school there. I have to play JV because there's a transfer rule in the state of Texas. So I go from playing on the state championship football team to ended up splitting time on a JV team, which just killed my dad. It was a tough thing to deal with, but it was surreal because after games, that was back when they had the grandfather clause. And what was funny is drinking at the time, the drinking age was 18. And literally 80%, if not 70% of the high school, when kids were seniors in high school, they were of legal drinking age. So it's like after a game, everybody would get in these pickup trucks, and they would all go to the coach's house, and everybody would just drink beer and talk football. And I was like, this is the oddest thing. And, you know, but it was an experience beyond anything I think I'd ever thought. We had 20,000 people come to our games. The next year I ended up starting, and I get offered a bunch of scholarships, but I turned them all down because I certainly was driven to be a BCS level Division I football player. And it was my life's dream. And so I turned everything down that I had, and I walked on at Texas Tech. When I walked on at Texas Tech, I was like, yeah, I can't do this. It did not take me very long. I was a wide receiver in high school. I got there. They moved me to defensive back. And I went in to talk to my coach literally about the end of my freshman year at Texas Tech. And I made the team, and things were going well. But I sat in his office, and I said, tell me where I'm at. You know, what's going on? And he says, man, you're slow. And I go, geez, I am? I had no idea. And I probably ran about a 4.6, 5.47 at the time, which I thought was fast. But that was not fast compared to what Texas Tech was all about. So what they said to me is, make it big where you're at. Do you love football? And I said, yeah, I love football. This is what I want to do, you know. And so I decided at that time, and at 18 years old, believe me, I struggled to make it to a class. I partied every day. I did everything the wrong way. I look back 25 years from now, and you'll hear it from your parents, and you'll hear it from your coaches, and you'll try to figure out what this is all about. But you'll always look back and wish that you had it all over again and that you could have done it different. So I ended up transferring. I went to a small college in Iowa, of all places. I think your athletic director's from Iowa. He's from Charles City. I was at Wartburg College, which is a school that my dad attended. It's in the middle of all these cornfields out in the state of Iowa, and there's 1,500 kids. And I walked in. There's Division III like Whitewater, and they're actually a powerhouse. They're ranked probably in the top 10 in the country right now for football. Their wrestling team has won about 10 or 15 national championships. Their track and field team has won this, and it's this small college called Wartburg College. But while I was there, I ended up getting a chance to, you know, play football for 3 more years. I ended up playing middle linebacker all 3 years, and ended up being a captain on my football team my senior year. So things really worked out for me. If I'd have stuck with my dream probably of being at this BCS level school, I realized that, it's not all what it is. I mean, it was really cool being there, but I don't have any regrets as to the things that I experienced moving to a smaller college. The biggest difference is when I went to this small college, it was all the people I was tapped into there. I mean, all the people that I graduated college with, they're all CEOs of companies today. They've done so well for themselves. And part of that is we weren't the greatest football team in Division III, but our football coach was cool. He was not an X and O guy. He was just this kind of chubby little Norwegian guy. And he had he was short. He's like this tall. And he'd walk around, he'd waddle around, and he'd go, Schneider, no, don't do that. He'd just talk like this all the time. He'd show up at our apartment at 6 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday. And you know what that's like, It's Saturday, and you'd be like, Coach, how are you? There'd be like 6 of us in the apartment, People are rolling off of beds. Nobody knows what's going on here, and Coach comes in, he'd just sit there. And he wouldn't say a word about our apartment. He'd just stare at us and talk to us about life. And we'd be, we didn't know what to say. All I know is we'd clean our apartment the rest of the day when he would leave. It was a great experience. But what it did for us, and what's unique about all the men that I ended up going to college with there, is we're all still married to the same women. We treat them good. We have our children. We have our jobs. We take care of things. And that's probably what we learned from our coach. He ended up passing away about 2 or 3 years later and died of cancer. He ended up being the football coach up at St. Olaf College. For me, I was driven to be a coach. I have no idea why. I didn't know it was my thing. Right when I graduated college, I got a job with who? Carnation Company, because of my dad. Here I was an education major. I wanted to coach, but I thought, man, I got to go out and make the money. So I immediately took a job. I made at the time, I still remember, $27,000, and I got a company card, and I moved to Houston, Texas. I was on my own every single day. They trained me down in Corpus Christi. They sent me down into Louisiana on the border down there. It was tough living because they sent me down into some of the toughest parts of Houston, Texas, down in the St. Charles, Louisiana, down on Corpus Christi on the border down there. And I had to learn how to sell. And I did this for a year. All I did is get in traffic every single day, driving back and forth from Houston, Texas. It was quite an experience for me. After 1 year, I had a football coach call me from Ripon College in Wisconsin, of all places, and say, hey, do you want to come coach? I got a stipend of about $10,000. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I left Houston. I said, I got to figure this coaching thing out. And so I made this switch. So I went up there and I was a strength coach, recruiting coordinator. They offered me the head swimming and diving coach job. They offered me the men's golf coach job. So here I have all these different jobs. I didn't know anything about swimming and diving at all. I couldn't even swim. And they give me this job at Ripon, and I'm out there and I'm doing it, and I'm like, oh, what's this all about? But I'm really driven to be good at what I do. It's actually probably the most important thing to me. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Strength Finder book. Has anybody ever seen it? What you should do is go over. You can get it at Target or Barnes & Noble. It's actually a really smart idea for you. It's called Strength Finder 2.0. And what you do is you just read the book. Is actually easy reading. It's only about 150 pages. But in it, you'll get a UPC code that'll take you online, and it'll let you take a test. And you can take this test online, and it'll tell you what your strengths are. See, the problem in life is too many people try to do too many things good, and then they just become average, versus actually finding out what your strength is in life. Once you find out what your strength is in life, you can start pushing forward towards that strength. So, one of my strengths, there's thousands of strengths that you can have. It'll pinpoint 5 of them, and it'll explain to you, and it'll actually print out these sheets and explain to you why it is you're good at this. So mine are that I'm a maximizer. So it says basically I maximize people around me. So I want people, and I can understand when I go into an environment, if I go into a room and I have to do a presentation, and I have to do it with 5 people, I have the ability probably to see who's the leader in the group, who's the one that's the quietest, who's this, who's that, and be able to maximize the group so we can have a great presentation. Another one is that I'm highly competitive. And winning to me is just highly important. And I don't know why it is. I'm not an overzealous dad. I'm not a transactional dad. I have 3 children, 9, 11, and 13. I'm 50 years old, so I started a little late in life. But I don't push my kids. I don't drive them too hard or anything else. But one thing I do have a problem with is that I don't really let them beat me at anything. And I don't know why. I got a 9-year-old daughter. She was up for Annie here in Madison. She can sing. You know, that's her thing. I signed her up for a triathlon, and this is just me. I have a compulsive behavior. So I just go, hey, Bryn, and she calls me Randy at 9 years old. She goes, Randy, you know, and I run triathlon. She goes, I want to try a triathlon stuff. So I said, all right. So I signed her up for a USA Kids triathlon, and she won it. And she had a pink bikini on. Every other girl had on like a one-piece with the USA Kids outfit on. And she comes across the finish line 5 minutes ahead of everybody. It was awesome, you know. So we go eat donuts. It's what we do at the Schneider house. Our life is about ice cream because the truth is everybody loves ice cream. And if you actually make your life about something as simple as that, some people talk about the calories and some people talk about all that stuff, but it really isn't about it. What you do is you find something that you enjoy, and everybody likes ice cream. I don't really care how it is. So what we do is make it a reward in my house. So I just tell my 9-year-old all the time, "You do great, I'll give you ice cream." And so we eat ice cream almost every night. But, because she does do pretty good with all that stuff. But probably my number one strength that came out was significance. And what it meant is that I wanted to be good at everything that it says. Basically, you want to just be known to be good at things. I actually don't have an ego about winning at all. Winning to me doesn't really matter. I remember when we won the Big Ten championship. It was the first time in school history, and I'm sitting on a bucket. It was the first time in school history that we won a Big Ten championship. And the way that we did it is we beat the 6th-ranked team in the country, and we just throttled them, beat them 9-3, and then had to turn around and beat the team that was better than them. And we turned around and beat them 9-3. You know how we did it? This is no lie. We told our kids, if you win, we'll give you ice cream. And they did. And you could see it, and it sounds funny, but it motivated them for whatever reason. But I remember coming off the bucket and going out onto the field, and it was somewhat uneventful for me. All I was thinking about was the NCAA tournament. But as a kid growing up, I was always driven to be a coach. And part of being a coach, anybody can be a coach. And anybody can be great at what they do. But the key is how driven are you? If you aren't driven, you probably don't get it. If you don't get up every day and you don't find a way to do things to be successful, you probably don't get it. And it's fine because most people in the world don't get it. For me, I like to just, whatever I do, I'm highly compulsive about it. So I saw somebody run. I was watching marathons on television, so I decided to run marathons. So I just go out and I run them. I'm bad. I can't run. If you watch me run, I'm really slow. I'm 218 pounds, so when I run, I'm just like this. And when I finish it after 5 hours, it's just like I did it. That's it. Let's move on to something else. But at some point, I coached college football for 10 to 15 years. I coached college baseball for 5 years. I've been coaching for 44 seasons. And in that process, somewhere along the line, somebody offered me a softball job. So I decided, I'll try this softball thing. I was a high school coach making $1,500 just 12 years ago. And at that time, I just said, I was watching all these other coaches, and I'm like, man, I could do this better. I really think I can. I just have to work at it a little bit harder. And the way that I did it was I just developed this plan where I was going to communicate effectively with my team. I was going to work them hard every day, but I would never, ever miss practice as a coach. And I would never show up late. And I would always be the last one to leave. So I wanted to be in control of my own factors as a coach. That's the one thing that I stuck to 15 years ago, and it's never changed. I've never missed a practice. As a part of that, too, I started growing in the sport. And I decided I'm going to be in this big time. So I went from high school. Within 3 or 4 years, I ended up coaching in Division III. 2 years into Division III, we were the #1 ranked team in the country. And we did it literally just by, it wasn't that we had the greatest athletes or anything else. We just did it by pushing kids to believe in the same things, to have the same values, and they bought into it. You can do it at any level, but people have to buy into it. And I know, like you see here at MATC with the baseball program, you see championships, you see legacy. Everything that I was building off wasn't legacy. It really wasn't. We didn't have the greatest players or the greatest program. We just had to fight the good fight. But because I had success in Division III, I got offered a mid-major Division I. And the way that I did that is I decided that I'm quitting my job. At the time, I was assistant director of admissions at a college. I was the head softball coach, and I had a couple other little jobs that I did. My wife had a job of 17 years working in technology at a big company, CUNA Mutual, which is here in town. I got her to quit her job. That was nice of me. So she gives up a $45,000 a year job. I give up about a $50,000 a year job. So we give up $95,000, and I go to work for $32,000 and live in a van down by the river, because that's exactly what it was. And I'm not joking. It was a van down by the river, because we were in a ravine, and there were squirrels running through our wall. I always remember this, and I just had our second child was born at the time, so we had a baby, a newborn baby. That's my wife allowed me to do this, and which I truly have an appreciation for. The program was the worst program in Division I softball. The previous season, they had 2 wins. 2 wins and 49 losses. So, you take this over. I had no assistant coach. I had no field crew. My field was bad. It was just the way it is. But the way that I did it, I just worked. Believe me, I can't hit a ball. I cannot hit a ball. Like if you pitch me a fast pitch softball, I can't hit it. If you threw me a baseball, I can't hit it. Number one, I don't have great eyes. I don't know why. I just can't hit the softball or the baseball. But this is ironic to you because it's all through hard work. Today, I actually have written the videos on physics of hitting and biomechanics of hitting, and it's in 3.5 million publications across the country. And it's baseball, softball. It doesn't matter. It's just all biomechanics and physics of hitting. What I did is I probably couldn't hit the ball, but I could study it. So that's what I did. I didn't even have a physics background. I wasn't even that smart. So I just decided one day to start reading about it and decided to do it. I've become essentially the face of DeMarini now. And so I run national camps from coast to coast for DeMarini. And I probably run 25 to 30 camps, other camps from coast to coast. Just hitting camps and coaches clinics and things like that. It probably took about 3 or 4 years at Valparaiso is where I was at as the head coach. And within about 3 years, we were winning 35 games a year. I got to tell you again, our talent wasn't that great. We didn't have the best 5-tool softball players. Most of our kids, they could, one kid could run, one kid could hit, one kid could throw, one kid could field. And I just recruited a lot of kids, and I said, you got to help each other out here, man. Because if it's just you, we're going to be hurting. You got to be a good team, you got to be good teammates, and you got to decide to move in the right direction with each other. And they did. And the year I left, that team went to 2 NCAA tournaments the years after I left. So they continued to grow, and that program has been winning 35 games a year now. Since we came into Madison, I don't know what you know about Wisconsin softball, but Yvette Healy's 35 years old. She's 15 years younger than me. I gave up being a head coach just to work at Madison. I was like, who wouldn't? It's Madison. It's great up here. You can fish and hunt. That was my number one thing. Number 2 is that I'm closer to Iowa, which was better for my family. But number 3, it was a big environment where, for me, I could do the things that I wanted to do that would push me in the right direction. I could mentor people. I could do coaches clinics. It was what my strength was. It wasn't so much that I had an ego about being a head coach. In the last 3 years with our success, we've been offered 3 or 4 BCS level jobs, probably bigger than Wisconsin. We just had a job offer from Stanford, which is one of the top schools in the country. Turned them down. Why? Why wouldn't you stay here? Make it big where you're at. What's the deal? It's Madison. I love Barry Alvarez. Here's the greatest story. You guys will get a kick out of this. So I go into Alvarez has a party at his house. So we go into Alvarez's house, and I don't really want to go. Me in a suit. I'm a jeans and T-shirt guy. Like, this is just how I live my life. And so Coach Ely, though, she's from South Chicago, and she's this tall, and she, has like a photographic memory and talks 100 miles a minute. And she's like, goes, come on, Randy, you got to go with me. You got to go with me. And I'm like, fine, I'll go. So we end up going over to his house, and it's like, it's nice. I mean, it's beautiful. It's Alvarez's house, and everyone's standing around. There's classical music in the background, and I think Ron Dame's there, and it's like some big thing. And I'm standing there going like, what is up with this? I just actually wanted to be home with my kids, but I'm going around and I'm talking, hey, how you doing? Shaking hands and doing all that stuff. And then we come in, and I've got a suit on, right? Now, I don't know if you'd never seen me in a suit, but like this is the closest thing I'd probably ever worn to one. So I make my way into the kitchen, and there's 20 people in there, and I know Coach. I mean, I know him just from being a coach here. And he turns to me in front of 20 people, and he goes, well, look at there. If it's not the mayor of Fitchburg. Is that not funny? And then he says, well, it looks like somebody got into their Sunday best. And I'm like, do I not match? Like, I didn't get it. But, either way, I just thought it was a good story. But it's funny, though. But so since we've ended up coming here to Madison, we came here in 2010. When we came here, the program was completely dismantled. They only had 15 wins the previous season. And everybody said the kids here are crazy. The kids here are crazy. The first day, I got invited to a kegger. That's my first day on the job because they handed me the other coach's cell phone, and one of the players invited me to a party. And I'm like, man, what's going on here at Madison? Like, this is a party school, man. Like, they invite the coaches. So we had to go talk to her, obviously, and tell her, try to keep us off your list. Not a good idea. And so we ended up getting started here. They ended up calling them. It was funny. We were going through all the articles. You're trying to learn about the program. And my favorite quote was this. They compared Wisconsin softball to the drunk uncle at a wedding. Isn't that wild? I mean, that's how bad it was. Jim, you probably remember that. And they said a lot of crazy things about Wisconsin softball. But when we came in, we didn't make it about the kids. We did not say one thing about them. We didn't say, man, these are bad kids. We didn't say the parents are bad. We just came in and said, you know what, we're not going to deal with it. We're just going to worry about getting better. And we immediately did. And so our first season, we won 30 games. We were competitive. We were all the way in the hunt with the Big Ten into the final, 2 weeks of the season. The next year, we won the Big Ten championship and went to the NCAA tournament, got to go out to Oregon. The year after, we ended up going back out to Oregon, who was number 1 in the country, and ended up losing to them. So, we played really well. For 3 or 4 years here, we've won over 145 games. And I credit the kids, though. I mean, they buy in. But the funny thing that people don't know is this. We actually had a walk-on that never played any high level with, softball, starting in center field for us. She was coming here today to speak, but she got caught up with class. Our shortstop has never played any high-level softball at all. She's a walk-on, started shortstop. Our second baseman is a walk-on, started for us. Our third baseman played no high-level softball. Our pitcher played no high-level softball. Our catcher played no high-level softball. We just had some Midwest kids that cared and played hard. But those same exact 6 or 7 kids that started for us out of our 9 kids beat 7 nationally ranked programs. We went out and we played Arizona when they were 23-0 and had 8 and 10 run everybody in the country, and we throttled them. And we did it by just pressuring them. And it's what our kids do. And it's actually a good message. And it's a big enough message that in December, early this year, I'm actually the featured speaker in the country at Bally's Casino in Las Vegas. And I'm talking to all the Division I coaches across the country. And what they're interested in is simply this: how you doing it? And we don't care. We'll share all of our information. You know why? Because most people won't do anything with it. They don't care. Most people are just, this is the way I do things, this is the way I roll. And we get that. So we'll share that information. But part of it is, how do you do it? Well, what we do is we think outside of the box. We do things actually a little unorthodox. So it's what I'm going to show you today, because it'll actually work for all of you to be a better athlete, a better student, and to get ready for life. What this simply is, and it's only about 12 screens, but it's make today great. Start realizing today that the present moment is all you really have. Just remember that statement as I'm going through this, because today is really actually all you really have. You might think that this is some profound statement, but you're going to realize that it's actually all you have. And you better start figuring out how to do something with it. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to. So this is what I just kind of told you right there. This is our past year. Every one of our starters on our team has earned all Big Ten, all region, or academic All-American honors in the past 2 seasons. Every one of our kids. That's pretty cool, given the fact that most all of them didn't come in with anything. Has anybody ever heard about this? 25,000 day principle? It's actually something that'll wake you up a little bit about life. They say on average in our lifetime that we sleep 9 hours a day. And that's probably true. Some of you probably sleep a little more. I don't know. Okay? But on average, they say if you live 25,000 days, on average you'll live to be 72 years old. So if you're lucky enough to live to 72, that's the average. You may live to be 90. I have no idea, but you may live to be 50. But based on this principle, 25,000 days, if you slept 9 hours a day, you're sleeping this many days. It's crazy. This right here is over 26 years of your life you sleep. You might want to start getting up. They say on average in our lifetime we work or go to school. Now this is all studies. 8 hours a day, which is 8,333 days of our lives. They say on average we spend 1.5 hours a day eating. Some of you, based on tonight, eat more. And they say on average we spend 30 minutes a day in the bathroom. So if you take sleeping, working, school, bathroom, and eating, it takes up 19,791 days of your life. Isn't that weird? It's like it wakes you up. They say we spend an average 1 hour a day studying and reading. Okay? Now, you may think, that's not true. But actually over time, in your lifetime, because even if you don't read now while you're supposed to be reading, you'll read more. Okay? They say that you spend 1 hour a day traveling to and from places. Some people, it's a lot more. If you lived in Chicago, it'd probably be even more. Look at how many days that is. They say we spend an average of 45 minutes a day texting, emailing, and talking on the phone. That might even be more for some people. 781, 219. They say you spend 45 minutes a day just daydreaming. And you spend 30 minutes a day organizing, cleaning, picking up things, whether it's your car or your house or your apartment or whatever the case may be. So studying, reading, and traveling, technology, daydreaming, and organizing takes up this many days, 4,166. Let's finish with exercising since you guys are all athletes. They say on average most people will do this 45 minutes a day. So if you're at practice, you know, from junior high through college, and you're doing that 2 hours a day, and you have events like your games on weekends that take 4 hours a day, it's not hard to get this 45-minute average. So sleeping, working, bathroom, eating take up 19,700. Let's finish with exercising. You do the math. You've taken up 24,738 days of your life. It's actually really powerful, because if you think about it from this perspective, the reason is that you're stressed out. And the reason that you think your life is overwhelming is that you're not time managed. It has everything to do with why you're stressed. Because your day is filled up. And you feel overwhelmed, but the person sitting next to you feels the same way that you do. Nobody's actually any different. We're all the same. But some of us decide to do something with the time that we have. Some of us decide to do something, other people don't. That's why when you say to somebody, "Are you sleeping? Is this all you do is sleep?" "Yeah, tired." Well, if that's the case, you're going to waste a lot of years of your life that you could actually get better. 24,738 days. What's funny is about this that I think is that we're not talking about going to the Badger football game or talking about anything else from that perspective. You know, they did a survey from the American Health Association in 2007, and what they did is they surveyed, you know, the college kids. It was the largest randomized survey ever done by the American Health Association. And what they did is they surveyed college kids, and they said, "What is the worst part of your life?" And 94% of them said they feel like they are overwhelmed with their lifestyles. That's actually a really powerful statement. The next thing on there is that 44%, so you can look right next to you, because today the numbers are staggering higher. 44% of all college kids deal with depression. So that means your friends sitting next to you, 44%, don't take it for granted. You think your life is tough. Their life is tough. They deal with it. And part of it is because of the pressures. It's literally the pressures of life. And it was all created in this new generation. And a lot of it came, and it's not your fault, growing up in this generation, obviously, but it was the pressures put on in sports and academics and everything else. But if you spent 15 minutes a day stressing out about all those things that you have to do and that you didn't get done, that's 260 more days of your life, which comes to 24,999. We only have one day left to have fun. So who's to say this ain't the day? Have fun. You know, seriously though, it is something to look at. Well, we told our kids at Wisconsin, I had no idea. Our kids are no different than you. They all come from the same lifestyles that you come from. And when those kids are in there and we're talking to them, we're trying to get them going in the right direction. And one day I actually sat down with them on this, and they kind of looked at it like maybe some of you are looking at it like, man, I might want to start getting going. Because they were stressed out with their lives. And I said, don't you want to get better? Like, don't you want to get better? Don't you get it? It's like a swing. This is my point. I go around the country and I talk about hitting a softball or a baseball. And everybody has it figured out. Go to every hitting coach across the country. Everybody has a style. Here's my style. I'm like, dude, it's a concentrated skill. It's like eating with a fork. You can't reinvent it. You can't, what are you going to do? Do it linear? More, I don't know. I'm going to hit my nose. Like, get the fork to your mouth. Get the bat to the ball. Be efficient with it. It's an efficient movement. Sometimes we overthink way too many things in life. And what's amazing to me is all that stuff that we create, all that stress that we create in trying to learn things like that, that's why the batting average in softball, baseball is 300 and you're considered good. You're good if you hit 300. You're average if you hit 250. It's actually only 5% difference in 1,000 at-bats or whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Don't stress out about it. We only have one day to have fun. Start having fun. So get time managed. Here's a great thing for you. You ought to try this. We did this with our kids, and it completely changed our softball team. So it's you. They're 18 to 21-year-old kids. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't think, well, they're Madison softball girls. That has nothing to do with it. Here's what they did. They did a things to do list every day, and their lives changed. Their lives changed in a day. They started doing, like, writing down a things to do list, and they said, I got to get this stuff done right now. Because I said to them, like, okay, let me see your schedule. And they go, well, Coach, I have class at 9. What do you do? Well, I sleep till, I don't know, 7:30. And then I, like, get up and I eat breakfast. And then shower and I don't know, dink around and I walk to class. Isn't that the way we're supposed to do it? No, yeah, let me give you an idea here. Okay, why don't you get up at 6? Why don't you run over to the indoor facility and hit for an hour? And then, like, hustle back home and eat breakfast. Feel free to shower. Be a good part of it. And then once you study for about 45 minutes. Now look at what you've accomplished before 9. See, at the end of the week, how are you going to feel? Because you're going to know that if you did that 3 days a week, but see, most people won't do it because they don't have, like, the ability to do it. Most people will say, well, you know, this isn't me. That's not the way I roll, man. I sleep. I do this, I do that. Well, you go, well, that's fine. You do what you want to do. But don't talk about getting better. Here's some simple things to remember. And this is just me from sports because I coach college football. I've coached college baseball. I've coached Division I athletics. You know, I've been there. Always be on time. If you could do one thing the rest of your life, always be on time. If you can't be on time, you probably don't get it. Time manage yourself. Be on time. If you be on time, people will respect you. Always have a great attitude. Things aren't always as good or as bad as they seem. Some people always say, like, man, I'm not being treated fairly enough. You're like, oh, come on, really? Really? You got it that bad? This is how we talk in our program a little bit to our kids. Like, they'll come in and go, yeah, but Coach, why am I not starting? You're like, because you can't hit. I don't know what to say. Is there something else we can talk about? Everybody's dealing with the same constraints in their own lives. Then there's the 10,000 hour principle. Again, when I always say this, I'll always say this when I'm speaking, don't shoot the messenger. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just fairly well read when I read about a lot of things. This is something you need to know about. There's a book out there called Talent is Overrated. And so if you felt like you haven't been seen in your sport, or you felt like you have, haven't gotten to where you need to be, you got to read this book. Why not read? Huh? I know it takes up on your 25,000 day principle, but it'd be a good thing to do. 10,000 hour principle, they say it takes 10,000 hours to become great at something. And ultimately, the book says this: nobody was born great. Everybody became great through what they do and hard work. 5,000 reps to change a bad habit. It's so funny, when I work on kids, they'll be swinging the bat and they'll go like this. And you'll go, okay, you're dropping your hands. And the kid will go, okay, what do I do? And you go, well, first of all, don't drop your hands. Okay? And so let's do this, and I'll give them like 3 things. And I swear the next like 8 swings, like this. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? I'm like, no. And then I'm reminded of this. It takes 5,000 reps to change a bad habit, so I just say to the kid, here's what I want you to work on. Go knock out about five grand for me, okay? Get in the indoor facility, do that 5,000 times, and come back and talk to me. And that's actually the only way a lot of these kids can get things turned around. But ultimately, their confidence goes up. They make the change. We talk about this. High attention, high performer. Low attention, low performer. You got to ask yourself, what are you? What are you, a high attention? Because a lot of great athletes, they don't think that. They just think, man, I'm high performance. And you're like, yeah, but dude, you're a high attention kid. High attention means that you show up every day and you just do your own thing. You have a low motor. You walk around like you got it figured out. And then all of a sudden you start talking different like the people. You're going back and forth with when you come in to practice and stuff, we tell our kids, try to put in 50 reps, and our kids will put in 10 reps. This is a kid to me that's high attention. Like, do what you're asked to do. Do what you're asked to do. Or you low attention, low performer. A low attention kid to us is what we call an everyday kid. An everyday kid to us is a kid that we never think about. There you show it to practice every single day. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. Their academics are taken care of. They're low attention. And if you're low attention, low performer, you got a chance to be a performer in your program. If you're low attention, high performer, you're the best. You're the greatest. You're somebody that comes every day, you're totally in control of your own factors. You're somebody that everybody respects because you work hard and you do everything the way that you're asked to do it. But if you're the worst, would be high attention, low performer. And we have kids like that, these kids, they come to us and their grades aren't very good and everything, and they go, you're meeting with them. We meet with our kids every couple of weeks, and they go, Coach, I just didn't feel I got a fair shot in the game the other day. I didn't get a chance to play. And we're like, you came late to practice twice. Like, do you not get that? Your academics, you're struggling in 3 of your classes. You're drawing attention from our academic advisors. Have to spend time with you all the time because you're not committed to going to class. Do you know that, well, Coach, it's not my fault I'm injured. I know injury's a part of sports. But are you a kid that just sits there and throws your ankle up on the bucket and doesn't walk over and listen when the coach is talking to your group? So if you were an outfielder and you're sitting there on a bucket with your foot on the bucket and your coach is out there telling your outfielders some instruction and you don't listen, you're high attention, because that means somebody has to come back to you and re-explain it to you. I don't have all that kind of time. My day starts at 5 a.m. in the morning and ends at 9:30 at night. Like, take care of it yourself, kid. Grow up. Show up to practice. Do the things that you're asked to do. You get a chance to play collegiate athletics. Do it the right way. Because what you're doing is you're sucking the wind out of our program. I don't care how great you are, you're pulling the energy. You're pulling the energy out of us. And when we tell our kids this, we're not doing it to be mean to them. We just say it from the perspective, do you get it? Do you get it? Because I don't think you do. I think you've been babied your whole life. You're a kid that has been babied, and obviously people have been taking care of you, and you've been walking around telling everybody how great you are. That's awesome. Congratulations. There's a likability factor when you try to get a job. You're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. High attention, high performer. You put yourself in these classifications. We say, do you think you're good, but you're probably great? Thinking you're good and you're probably great actually sums up what sports are all about. Our president at our college used to say it. You think you're good, but you're probably great. I never really figured it out the first couple times he said it. until I got into sports more. And what it simply means is that we actually conform to society, that we won't do things outside of our norm. We won't think outside of the box. We won't give effort because if our team doesn't like somebody giving too much effort, then we got to dial it back. Because if somebody runs these sprints too hard, then, you know, everyone's telling them, come on, man, like, come on, let's go. We're going to be running all practice. Instead of one kid wanting to get out there and do it a little bit harder than everybody else. I'll let you just read this. It's called deliberate practice. It's a part of the 10,000 hour principle. And essentially what it means is, whatever you do, you can cut what you do down and dial it back. So if you're going to work on hitting a baseball, for example, if hitting a baseball or hitting a softball is your thing and you want to be great at it, go in there and instead of doing 100 cuts, do 20. But have a plan for your 20 cuts. And do you realize that you'll get better like this? Like you'll get better twice as fast than doing 100 where 80 of them are no good. It's called deliberate practice. This is actually all things that they have studied. Stick with me. There's a couple more slides. Training methods. A lot of times when you think about getting better, what you want to do is you want to come up with ways to get better. Here's the state-of-the-art stuff. Differential learning. Differential learning means this. When you go work with somebody on a tee to hit a baseball, while they're hitting on a tee, you should be doing something beside them. Don't just stand there and socialize with them. That's a complete waste of time. Instead, do something. And if it has something to do with balance, you'll make yourself better. Neurologically, it actually makes you better. It's called differential learning. They're doing it all over the country, and it's one way that they're training top athletes all over the country. So you would say, man, I'm going to go down and do some ladder work and some agility work. Okay? While you're doing that, you'd be doing that, and then you have a partner there with you. They may be jump roping. They're tired then. They're physically tired. But then all of a sudden, when you get back on the ladders, you're physically tired. You have to focus, and you've got to get more in tune with what you're doing with your feet. It helps you advance yourself. Speed accuracy trade-off. Does anybody know what that is? It's really a simple thing that you should know as an athlete because it has everything to do with how good you are as an athlete. Okay, speed accuracy trade-off is simply this. If I wanted to do this, I could do it, okay? And we make our kids juggle just for hand-eye coordination so we can do stuff like this. And if I wanted to move my feet back and forth over a line, I could do this. Okay? But the minute that somebody tells me to do both of them at the same time, chaos hits. You drop the ball. Because once there's two variables, things go out of whack. It's called the speed accuracy trade-off. What happens as an athlete, you can actually train your speed accuracy trade-off. It'll help you. These are the kind of things that you should be doing to become a better athlete. So what you would do is you could juggle and learn to run through a ladder, do the icky shuffle through a ladder, and juggle at the same time and do them both quick. And then add another variable. Just simply count backwards from 100 by 7s. Make it tough. Not 5s. Or 1s. 199.98. No. Make it tough. And go backwards with it and add another variable. The more variables that you add, what happens is young kids will trade off speed for accuracy. Older kids will trade off accuracy for speed. And if you're looking at playing at the highest level, so I know a lot of you come in here and you play sports at this level and you want to go on to that 4-year college. And by going on to that 4-year college, this is something that would help you. Learn to control the controllables. Learn to control the variables. But if you never train them, what happens is that you look slow. So for me, when I go out and recruit top softball players in the country, everybody says, man, I got this kid, she hit 600. Hit 600. And I'm like, yeah? What does that mean? What does she base? Pumpkin? Nobody hits 600. You know, so what we're trying to do is see kids at the highest level. So what you're trying to do is see kids how they transfer the ball, everything that they do. But this is something like for baseball, softball that we do with our kids. I'm telling you, we had 3 walk-ons in the middle of the field starting against the #1 ranked team in the country, and we were outplaying them. We were outplaying them into the 6th inning. But they have 6 All-Americans, and they figured out how to score 6 runs at that point. But what we do is we teach our kids speed, accuracy, trade-off. Young kids give up speed. Old kids give up accuracy. So when you do an older kid goes like this, if they were able to go through like a ladder really, really fast like this, they would just juggle and go through like this. Whereas a young kid would just throw the balls and take off like this. Because they don't care. And the same thing that you see, 18-year-olds versus 21-year-olds. Kinesthetic awareness training. Teach yourself to get up and get down. This is actually something that is crazy to me. Nobody knows what's going on below their knees. Like they look down, like the minute their head goes down, they fall. And they're constantly on the ground. Playing college football, I remember guys all the time. I mean, we had a guy that played linebacker with us that was 6'3", 245 pounds. I mean, his chest stuck out like this, and his arms were like this big. But I'm like, dude, like, can you only run a straight line? Because that's all he could do. Like, the minute he would start going down, he would go down. And, hurt somebody. But it's like, why can't you figure out? So what we always say is whatever thing that you do, actually start, be creative enough to get off the ground and get up and get off the ground and get up. And then the psychoneuromuscular theory. If you don't have time to get to a facility and train, visualize. It's actually probably the greatest way that you can train yourself. So what you can do is actually get on video and watch the perfect swing or watch the perfect free throw and visualize that for 15 minutes, and that trains. There's actual studies that show that that's better. Do you know the #1 kid golfer in Great Britain was 9 years old, and he was a scratch golfer. And when they interviewed him, they said, man, who's your pro? Who's your pro? Who works with you? Who has done this great job with this kid? I mean, the kid sand saves. They had him on there like hitting out of the sand over like a bunker like this, and he would put it right up on the pin. And they asked the kid, he goes, well, I play Tiger Woods golf. He actually learned playing Tiger Woods golf. This is no lie. Nobody ever helped him. It was psychoneuromuscular theory to the T. Remember good to great, fear of failure. If you're not prepared, you will fear of failure. Everything that you do, if you get time managed with your day and you work hard, you'll feel better. If you feel better, you'll be where you need to be. I'm going to tell you right now, that's what you got to do. You just have to feel good. And feel good means that you get up every day and you do the right thing. Only those that dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. For me, I know this. I failed my whole life. I constantly failed. But I never really got caught up in it. I never blamed my coaches. I never blamed my friends. I never blamed anybody for my failures. Instead, I just took it on myself and I just kept saying, man, I'm going to pick myself up and get to where I need to be. Failure will give you great perspective on success. When you fail, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. I'm almost done. The man, the mule, the boy. Anybody heard of this story? So there's this man, this mule, and this boy. And they decide that they're going to go on this trip and deliver this package. And so they're all hanging out together. And the old man looks at the young kid and says, listen, we got to get this package 100 miles. I've traveled my lifetime. We got to go across the desert. Why don't you ride the mule and I'll walk? And the kid goes, all right. So he gets up on the mule. And they take off walking and they go 20 miles. And there's all these people like this sitting there. And everyone starts screaming at him. And they go, hey kid, what's your problem? Why are you doing that to that old man? You got those young legs. Like, why don't you get off the mule? Man, that's bad. So he jumps off the mule and he looks at him and he goes, sir, I apologize. He goes, you should ride the mule. So the old guy says, fine. So he jumps up on the mule. And they take off and they go another 20 miles. And he's riding this mule and all these people are sitting there about 20 miles into it. And they start screaming at him, come on, old guy. You probably walked 1,000 miles in your lifetime. I don't get it. Like, why are you doing that to that young kid? So he jumps off the mule, and they look at each other, and they go, yeah, maybe we should both just walk. So they take off walking with the mule. And as they're walking with the mule, they go another 20 miles. And all of a sudden, there's all these passerbys, and they go, come on! What's a mule for? And so they go, yeah, you're right. So they jumped up on the mule. And so they get on this mule, and they go another 20 miles. There's all these passerbys standing there. They go, come on, who would do that to a mule? We know they got great backs and stuff. They can haul things, but that's not good. So they are totally perplexed. They jump off the mule. They're staring at the mule. The mule's looking at them. So what do? They got 20 miles left. They pick up the mule. They pick up the mule, and they go another 20 miles. And they get to the end of their trek, and there's a bridge. And they have to cross this bridge and deliver this package. And as they cross the bridge and deliver the package, they get up on top of the bridge, they slip on some water, the mule flips off their shoulder, goes into the river, and dies. Sad. So what's the moral of the story? What's the moral of the story? That's right. If you try to listen to everybody, you'll obviously lose your ass. Get it? That's a good story. I only got 2 slides left. Sorry for saying a bad word too, but if you think about it in life, I always draw a straight line for a kid, and I'll put all these little lines off of it. And I say, you know what? As you go through life, you're going to have a lot of critics. Some of it could be your parents, some of it could be teachers, some of it could be coaches, some of it could be friends. And if you learn at an early age to pick and choose who you're going to listen to, and you start making the right choices young, you'll actually move in the right direction. I think a big part of it is not listening to everybody, but listening to what is right. There is a time to start doing it. For me, I know I just never really listened to my critics. If anybody ever told me that I couldn't do it, I just go, yeah, whatever, and I just keep moving forward. This is my favorite quote of all time. Before you can control factors in other people's lives, you have to be in control of those same factors in your own life, or you'll have no respect. Don't talk about being great if you don't work. Because everybody you talk to, and I know this, because I've spent my life in higher education around college kids. So I talk to them all the time. I'm around college kids more than I am people my age. And the one thing that I've learned is this: they don't respect kids that don't work. I've had 2 or 3 kids in my program over 10 years that are some of the best and most decorated players that ever left our school. And you know how many friends they got? 0. I guarantee you. Most of them are living at home. They're struggling. And the reason is they never work. It's not about getting respect from your coaches all the time. It actually starts with your peers. And it doesn't matter who your friends are. I always tell our kids, the people that accept you for who you are, if you're a kid that just goofs off all the time, out of all due respect, anybody can goof off all the time. You're not reinventing the wheel on it. Come up with something new. Change your life. Somebody will. Most people won't. But get in control of your own factors. That way, if you're sitting around and you're somebody that has a voice, and you have the ability to talk, or you want to lead, you're in control of your own factors. But if you're somebody that is just a high performer, and you're high attention, you generally have no respect every time you stand up and speak. It's just the way life is. This is a great quote to remember. Because if you control your own factors, and it starts with time management, you'll get yourself in the right frame of mind. I'll finish with this. Make it big where you're at. I say this all the time going around to colleges. Don't think that anything is any bigger out there. Because wherever you go in life, and I understand like being at Wisconsin, it's pretty cool there. It really is. But for me, I could coach anywhere in the country. It wouldn't really matter to me. I could go back and coach high school because it's big. You just make that big, whatever that experience may be. Enjoy it. Have fun. Your coaches, everybody is here for the same reason. Your teachers, they're all here for the same reason. Make it big where you're at. Why not make MATC one of the greatest athletic schools in the country? Start figuring a bunch of this stuff out, and you could probably do it. But it would take leadership. It would take somebody to drive people in the right direction. Most people won't do it. Most kids won't go that direction. But if somebody stood up and decided, you know what? We want to be the greatest college in the country. Start some legacy. Have some fun. It's a great thing to be a part of. It really is. When you look back 20 years from now, you'll never regret these experiences. The friends you make, the degree you got, hindsight's 20/20. You'll never look back and regret it, ever. That's the great thing. The thing that I remember the most in all my lifetime are the guys I played football with. And the times that I had just playing football. I remember we went 7-3. I mean, it was uneventful from a win-loss standpoint. But it was fun. The times that we had, everything else. So remember the 25,000 day principle as you kind of go into the rest of life and figure out to make today a great day because it's the only day we have to have fun. That's it. Thanks.